gray area, it is something that is like a sign that you are healing. When you are able to allow space for that flexibility in you to not think so black and white, it shows that you have room to allow that to happen. Because when we have faced trauma or we are going through survival mode, we don't really have the capacity to be thinking about others and others' feelings or what's really going on. Hello, boss. Welcome to Healing with YB. Today, we are going to be talking about the gray area, or what the gray area is, and what a black and white mindset is like, because this is something that has helped me in my healing journey tremendously, especially during the time when I was going through the loss of my immediate family. It was really hard for me to find answers and come with a conclusion of this is how it's supposed to be and this is what I need to do. So this was something that I learned during that period of my journey, and I think that it is a great tool to have for you to be more flexible with your way of thinking, and it's going to help you also not take things so personally. The gray area is something that you can use that's like universal for, let's say that a friend is acting a certain way or behaving kind of oddly, and you just feel like it's kind of weird and you don't know what to do. Maybe you could approach it from the gray area point of view of that, like, maybe they are doing this because of XYZ instead of going straight into they are doing this because they don't care about me. So, aside from me doing it and experiencing it and seeing the benefits of it, I also have seen experts like my therapist and that one girl that I showed you that talked about IFS. They talk about the gray area from this point of view of that it is something that is like a sign that you are healing. When you are able to allow space for that flexibility in you to not think so black and white, it shows that you have room to allow that to happen. Because when we have faced trauma or we are going through survival mode, we don't really have the capacity to be thinking about others and others' feelings or what's really going on. It's more of like me, and I gotta do this and that in order to survive. They don't use the actual word like gray area because it's not an actual clinical study like IFS therapy, but it is like the slang term for this other term that my therapist told me. It's called cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility is something that is kind of like the gray area, but it's not like a copy and paste of what it is. With cognitive flexibility, research has shown that it can directly influence how well you regulate your emotions. And being able to regulate your emotion means that you are more grounded and you are no longer in survival. So that is kind of the clinical term for the gray area, which is cognitive flexibility. Being able to be flexible about the way that you think or approach certain things. That's what I found when I was going through the loss of my immediate family. I had to go through a phase of thinking what was the best decision to do. And I came from a black and white perspective because that's all I've known my life, right? This is the right way, this is the wrong way. So when I was approaching these decisions with my family, I couldn't figure out what was the right way and the wrong way because it all just felt so off to me. Before I go into very specific details and events, I want to tell you about what it means to live in the black and white area or the black and white world. We don't actually live in a black and white world, but we think in a black and white way majority of the time. Majority of the population, I feel like, of course, I don't have evidence, but just even in my circle, I know that majority of us think in the black and white way. This is wrong and this is right and this person is that way. We don't really see beyond the surface quite often or as often as we should, but it is a lot deeper majority of the time than what appears on the surface. So in the black and white world, we think it's one way or the other only. Some small examples is I'm going to number them because then I'm going to show you later on to what the gray area is with these, okay? So, number one, in the black and white perspective of this, we say this person is stealing, so he's a bad person. Or number two, this person is a murderer, so he deserves to die. Number three, this person believes in Jesus, so he will never commit a crime. Number four, the term or the phrase that says family is family. And so then they kind of let things slide. To be thinking that this is the only way, this black and white concept of thinking like this is really, I don't want to exactly say bad, but it's really closed off onto what the world actually is. And what the world actually is being able to see the gray area. So in the gray area, what the gray area is we can sit in the why even when their actions don't make sense to us, or we wouldn't have made the same choices as them. This does not mean we are making excuses for them or that we agree or stand by them, but we can comprehend possibly how this conclusion came about from this person. Understanding the why does not mean that you agree with it. It does not have to mean that. So, going back to those examples that I gave you, example number one, where I said, in the black and white world, we would say this person is stealing, so he's a bad person. But in a gray world or in a gray perspective, we say it's not right to steal. Why is he stealing? Was he raised this way? Is he in survival? Is something wrong with his brain for him to feel like this is what he needs to do? What is going on here? It's not that he's just stealing for no reason. There is a reason why he's stealing. Maybe he was raised that way, like I said, like that question. Maybe that was what it was. Maybe he just has a bad brain and he can't comprehend what to do and what not to do. And this is what it's telling him to do. Who knows? But thinking in the gray area in this example, that's how you think of it. Number two, when I said the black and white, which is this person is a murderer, so he deserves to die. Well, in the gray area, he shouldn't have murdered this person, but what led him up to this point? Abuse? Neglect? A bad brain again? What is the reason why he is doing the things that he's doing? The gray area is to think of the reasons why. Number three, when I said that this person believes in Jesus, so he will never commit a crime. Gray area with religion, right, is that just because someone claims to be religious doesn't mean that they can't do anything wrong and that there's no accountability that needs to be done here. The gray area with like cults is that yes, most times we don't agree with it, but we can sit with that they grew up probably brainwashed, so their brain functions in this way where they believe that this is the way and the only way. And so for us to be able to be in the gray area and think like this, where we see why they do the things they do, that is the gray area. Now, with number four, when I said the phrase family is family, and a lot of the times we use that because we believe that just because they are family, we will let things slide and it's okay and we're always gonna allow them back in type of deal. The gray area with family is that we can set boundaries with them and we can choose when we can handle them and when we can't. You don't have to always allow them back in just because they are blood. You don't have to let things slide all the time, and you also don't always have to cut them off. It can be where it's a complicated relationship. Sometimes you want to, sometimes you don't, but make sure that you have boundaries that don't destroy your peace and your sanity. I think that that is very important to have, and that's the gray area with family. So now I want to show you or tell you a time where I lived in the black and white world and I was really too much to one side. And I'm using this one side as in like I was too much into the black being the bad side and then the white being the good side. So in the black, during the time before I found forgiveness, I was living in a black and white world, a black and white mindset. And honestly, I didn't find the gray area until this year was when I started really practicing that. So I still lived in a black and white world. Honestly, I thought it had to be one way or the other still. But before I found forgiveness was when I was more into the black side. I was very negative, very full of hatred. I was in a way toxic. I was not a really great person to be around, and that's probably why my circle was so small during that time. But I was not somebody that was just uplifting or kind and encouraging, empowering. I was not who I am today. I was not a great person, and I was in that black because I was in so much pain from my trauma that I didn't know how to undo that, escape that, or I didn't know how to handle it. And the only way that I thought was just to fight against the world because the world was giving me shit anyways. So that's the kind of mindset and what I was before when I was living in the black and white world and I was leaning more towards the black area. Me being that way, an example that I have for you is I had a sister, a late sister, who she was into drugs and into very abusive relationships, and she was not there for her children, which is my niece and nephews. And I was not a really compassionate or empathetic person at that time, being in the black area there. I was not the type of person who would give her any kind of kindness for what she was doing. I know why I thought like that, but now me being the person that I am today, honestly, that is just really sad to see that I lacked so much compassion and empathy for somebody like my late sister who was struggling. The gray area with her is that I should have, or it would have been nice if I would have been able to see that her behaving and acting the way that she was for a reason. There was a reason why she was such a rebellious child, that she was into drugs and into abuse to numb her pain. I even remember saying one time to one of my friends that had asked me how many siblings I had. And I said that I had two sisters, but one of my sister died. However, she actually wasn't dead. She was just out there doing drugs somewhere. And I said that because I hated her with my guts because she left her kids with me and I was raising them. And then she was giving me a really hard time. And I was just sick and tired of her. And I didn't think that she deserved to be a part of this world, a part of Earth anymore because she didn't care about her children. She didn't care to be a better mom. She was actually causing us trouble. And so that's why I came to that saying that I said. And looking back, I think that if I were to be more healed, I wouldn't have said such a horrible thing. Even though she was the way that she was, I don't believe that any human deserves to die for being the way that they are because of experiences that have shaped them or a bad brain to be who they are. So that's me in this black area before I found forgiveness when I was living in the black and white world. Now, the white, there was a moment too where in the white I was doing too much good things. I know it sounds so odd to say that you could do too much of a good thing. Yes, you can. When you don't have a balance, you can do too much good as well. And there was a period in my life, and this, of course, was after I found forgiveness. When I found forgiveness, I fell into a deep hole of goodness. So the impact of my rebirth actually pulled me into positivity and kindness and selflessness so bad that I started to feel awful. I started to feel like I was an imposter. I started to feel like I couldn't feel a certain way because if I did, then I'm not a good person. So it started to get bad to that point, and I only got out of it because I started to realize that I had stopped setting boundaries and I had started to put other people above me, and I stopped feeling emotions like anger that I actually needed to feel. And that's why my imposter syndrome started coming in because I was angry, but I was behaving this certain way, but it felt fake. And so I was like, but I'm not allowed to feel angry. So why do I feel like this? It was because even emotions like anger, you need to feel them and you need to go through them. So when I was in this white world, it was getting bad. and I started to push too hard, especially for the people around me, to believe in positivity and forgiveness. And that is not okay. That is not okay to push somebody to believe or to do something when they don't want to or they are not ready to. And so that is something that I learned and that I had to go through as well when I was too much into the good. It's almost as if, like, when you see those people who get into Christianity, right, and they get too hooked on that they start pushing for other people to believe in that. With positivity and forgiveness, it was almost like a religion for me where I started pushing for other people to do that. And that is just not okay, boss, because people have their own time that they, you know, if they want to feel inspired by this and do it, then they will. And so, yeah, that was bad. It was also a bad moment to be too much into the good area. Now, about the gray area. And as I keep talking, it's starting to get dark. So, my room is starting to get dark, and I apologize for that if you are watching this. So, how I found the gray area, despite one of the biggest challenges in my healing journey, which was losing my immediate family. That was really hard because family is something that you grew up with, right? They are the people that you've known ever since you were given birth, or that you yearned for if you didn't have a family. You wanted that, and if you had that, you wanted to keep that. And if you strayed away from that, then it meant that you were going to take this world on alone. And could you do that? So for me, losing family and the family dynamic was something that was really big for me, and it was complicated for me because I had experienced the black and the white, okay, not just a black and white world or a black and white mindset. I experienced where I went too deep into the black and too deep into the white, that I knew I didn't want to be in those areas. And so what I did was I worked through the most complicated things ever. And the gray area is super complicated. It takes you asking questions and you admitting and you being flexible, okay? Like that cognitive flexibility. It takes you being flexible in order to be able to be in the gray area. And if you listen to episode 40, where I talk about IFS therapy and all these parts, well, being flexible and being in pain and having your parts present, it's all very hard to do because you have one part of you that is screaming like, I don't deserve to be abandoned. Why are they abandoning me? And then this protective part like, oh, who cares about them? Just let them all go. If they don't want to choose you, then don't choose them too. And so all these parts and all these, complications with what should I do and what is right to do, and I don't want to be full of hatred. I don't want to just let it slide too. What do I do? And so then that's when I found the gray area, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't have to have it all figured out. Maybe it doesn't have to be one way or the other. I don't have to be full of hatred, but I don't have to let it slide too. So, what could I do? And that's when I found the gray area. And in the gray area, I started to set boundaries. Boundaries was what helped me really answer and find solutions for relationships in this complicated scene here. I started to set boundaries with certain people for certain reasons, and I started to see where I could be flexible and where I felt like I didn't want to be flexible because those were my values and those were what I wanted to be stern on, because it wasn't that it was my protective part coming in, but it was something that I valued. So I had to dig in and really work with my parts through IFS therapy and understanding the gray area. And because I knew, based off of my own background and experience with the black and the white area, that I didn't want to go there. So then I started going pieces by pieces and working through this gray area and understanding what it was like and what it meant to be in the gray area. So here is what I concluded after I asked myself the questions like, they didn't ask to be put in an awkward situation, so why make them choose sides? Why would people still hold on or want to hold a relationship with my perpetrator? Do I want to hold a relationship with these people? Why or why not? Where do I draw the line? How does it make me feel if I continue or don't? So here's a summary to answer it all and sort of my conclusion after trial and error and educating myself with the gray area and all that stuff, okay? So the truth is, not everyone knows how to handle such situation. So they let it go. They're not going to make time to make decisions or choose or address the issue because most people have their own problems to deal with. I believe until these people face similar situations, then it would be more personal and a priority. And maybe they probably know how to support survivors better, but in the meantime, it's just not a priority. It might even come off as like they don't care, which is half true. So then, like, you question yourself, well, if they don't care, why should I care and keep them in my life, right? Well, here's where I drew the line, and currently at the time of this video and what I'm going through. If it comes down to my immediate family, if you're not my parents and you hold a relationship with my perpetrator and you show up for him more than you do me, then I don't want a relationship with you. Because to me, it hurts more to witness this than to distance myself and just let you do you. There's no benefit in me suffering and seeing you try so hard with him, and I'm receiving little to no benefits from our relationship. The relationship is not balanced in this case, and it's unhealthy for me to continue with you. If you are not my immediate family, then I do what I can when I can. And if it's not good enough for you and you don't want to invite me anymore, then that's fine. But if you see value in me and you want to include me, then that is okay. But I'm not going to make you choose unless our relationship is super close, then that's a different story. When it comes to my parents, of course, that's different as well. And I'm not going to go into the gray area with them because it's a lot more complicated, and I'll probably have another video for it because it's very long. But that is the generic conclusion of finding the gray area of what do I do with family and my immediate family when it comes to when they still want my perpetrator around. Hating someone with my whole being, like I used to before I found forgiveness, just wasn't in my blood anymore. To me, I was thinking, like, why hate someone for not knowing how to navigate this type of situation? Why hate someone that wants a relationship with him over me because they benefit from him more than me? Why hate someone because their experiences, beliefs, opinions are different from mine? Why hate at all and bring a negative feeling into my body when these people don't even spend day to day thinking about this? So instead of being the black area with this, where I'd hate people like, I used to back then, or being in the white area where I would ignore these people as well and just go with the flow and fawn, I learned to navigate the gray area. Remember, boss, just because we're able to find the gray area and think in a more flexible way does not mean that it doesn't hurt and that the pain isn't there. I was still in a lot of pain with the choices that I had to make and that people made. And so it still hurts. And I hope that you know that it hurts because that is what healing is. And that is what you have to go through. How resilience happens is that you just have to go through it. Unfortunately, in life, things happen and we can't just set it to the side and avoid it for forever and just be so negative about it. We can't just set it to the side and pretend like it's not there. No, we have to go through that. All right, boss, to conclude, yes, living in the gray area is very, very hard. It is very hard to live in the gray area, but I believe that it is more rewarding. You are living authentically, your fullest potential, and at the same time, your core self, which is another IFS term, is present where you can understand and have compassion, and there's clarity there. There's just everything there for you to make decisions and to live your fullest potential. I hope that this episode has helped you understand the gray area and help you navigate those complex things in your life where you don't know what way is right for you. Just know that maybe you can play as it comes, just like how I am with the gray area with my family. I'm just going to play it as it comes, and I'm going to set boundaries and do what feels right for me as well. All right, boss, with that being said, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. And as always, stay being the bad boss that you are. Bye.